I call to order the meeting of the City of Bloomington Township. And if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands nation, God, indivisible, liberty, and justice. Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Trustee Kearns? Here. Trustee Bolin? Nope, sorry. Old template. Trustee Mosley is absent. Trustee Motney?
Here.
Trustee Dannenberger is absent. Trustee Becker?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks?
Here.
Trustee Ward?
Here.
Trustee Lee is absent. Trustee Crumpler?
Here.
Trustee Millowa?
Here. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, so we're going to move on to item 4A, public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget as requested by the City of Bloomington Township. Do we have any comments from townships?
You'll have to open the public hearing.
Yes, okay.
Take your time.
Yes, let's open the public hearing at 5:26. Supervisor Skillroot, no.
I don't have any additional comments. I've explained it in the last meeting.
Okay, sounds good. And it doesn't look like we have anybody else here. Right. Okay. All right. All right, then we can just go ahead and close the public hearing then. It's 5:27. And we are going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, moved by trustee Hendricks and seconded by trustee Crumpler. Are we doing clickers or?
We're gonna do a voice vote.
Okay.
Trustee Kearns?
Yes.
Trustee Motney?
Yes.
Trustee Becker?
Yes.
Trustee Hendricks?
Yes.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
Trustee Crumpler?
Yes.
Trustee Millowa?
Yes. And we're going to move on to the regular agenda, a consideration and action and on the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 budget and appropriation ordinance as requested by the township supervisor.
Does anyone have any questions?
No. Okay. No questions. Then is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay, moved by trustee Ward,
I'll second.
seconded by trustee Hendricks. Voice vote?
Voice vote.
Okay.
Trustee Kearns?
Yes.
Trustee Motney?
Yes.
Trustee Becker?
Yes.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
Trustee Crumpler?
Yes.
Trustee Millowa?
Yes. And item 6B is a consideration and action to approve the reappointment of Brad Williams to the Evergreen Memorial Cemetery Board as requested by the township supervisor. Is there such a, do you want to make comments?
Are you ready for comments?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to say Brad has been a real asset to the cemetery. He has a very conservative historical component to it. So he's very much into the history of the cemetery, has provided great recommendations. These are 6-year terms. You don't want somebody coming in there that doesn't have those kind of qualifications and that compassion and love for what they're doing. And they do this without pay. So thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, motion by trustee Hendricks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Ward.
Voice vote.
Voice vote?
Trustee Kearns?
Yes.
Trustee Motney?
Yes.
Trustee Becker?
Yes.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Ward?
Aye.
Trustee Crumpler?
Yes.
Trustee Millowa?
Yes. And moving on to reports by elected official, presentation and discussion of the township supervisor's report. So we'll go with Supervisor Skillroot.
Okay, so if you look at my supervisor's report, it looks thin, but I had a lot going on this week or this month. I did want to say though that the money that we've received from the Social Security office as we're kind of like an interim until they get Social Security for many of the individuals. we do not get the full amount of how much we've provided. We have one particular individual, which will show exactly what I'm talking about. We get a period of time, but it's not designated by us, it's designated by the Social Security office. One in particular had been on our rolls for like 7 years. And then finally was awarded the Social Security. We received 9,000 something on that, 9,000 something. We could have we expended 26,000 something. So we don't get the full amount, just so you know. Taxpayer dollars are reimbursed for a portion, but not all of it. So. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is that I last month attended the Shingle Leadership Training with Assessor Scudder, and it was very informative. And I plan to incorporate some changes in what I learned in that class, and I hope to at least move into another class or participation in some other way later on. But I first need to set up the guidelines that I want to pose for my staff, and I think it's a good program. And then next, you're all invited to the annual town meeting, which is April 8th at 6 o'clock here. And this is where we'll provide, and we always do provide a more in-depth analysis of what we've done in the past year. So there'll be more graphs and discussion from us. So you're invited as an elector, not as a voting member. Okay. Same for me. I'm as an elector and staff member, sort of. And that's all I have, unless you have questions.
Questions? Okay, no questions. So we're gonna move on to Assessor Scudder.
And the fighting the line I lost. Um, I've been working, I made these graphs for how the township has grown and the EAV's grown for over the past year over year for the past 4 years. We get this same report every February from the county. The county gets it from the state, and they keep all the numbers. But these are some of the reports that are going to be in that annual town meeting. And I've been doing a lot of research and other things to report on this year. It sounds like, or it seems like we don't have a lot of history presented to you guys for the township, but it is the oldest form of government in the United States. It started in Rhode Island. So I found some interesting things that I'm going to share at that annual meeting, along with the assessment information that I'm going to pass on.
Okay, any questions? Okay, see none. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, motion by trustee Becker, second.
I'll second.
Okay, second by trustee Motley. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the City of Bloomington Council. If everyone could stand, if able, and say the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Kearns. Here. Councilmember Mosley.
Here.
Councilmember Motney.
Here.
Councilmember Dannenberger.
Here.
Councilmember Becker.
Here.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Here.
Mayor Millawamboy.
Okay, here. We're going to go ahead and start with recognition and appointments, and starting with a proclamation on Toastmasters International Day. And who do we have? Gary, right? Okay. If you want to come up, I'll read the proclamation and then give you an opportunity to take to say a few words and maybe take a picture if you would like. If I'm not going to mess up your groove. So whereas the Harbor Building that resides on the corner of Main and Market Streets is the first known building to host a Toastmasters meeting. And whereas the founder, Dr. Ralph Smedley, being employed by the Bloomington YMCA, was the originator and conducted the first Toastmasters meeting. And whereas the Toastmasters International Organization was founded on October 22nd, 1924. Whereas the Toastmasters International Organization is celebrating its 100th year. And whereas the District 54 Toastmasters Central Illinois is celebrating the 120th year anniversary of the first Toastmasters meeting held on March 24, 1905. Now, therefore, I, Mboko Malambwe, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby recognize March 24th, 2025 as Toastmasters International Day and encourage all citizens to join the District 54 Toastmasters in the observance of this important day in the Bloomington community. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
YMCA where they hosted the very first Toastmasters meeting and our founder, Ralph Smedley. And then also from the McLean County Historical Society that helped us do the research to find out that that very first meeting was held in the Harbor Building in 1905 and that our Toastmaster historian, Bob Palmer, had a plaque commission that now hangs on the Harbor Building down there. So thank you.
Thank you. Not sure if you have anybody to take a picture. I do. Oh, okay. Oh, there you go. Awesome. You came prepared. Congratulations. Okay, the next proclamation is in recognition of Fair Housing Month in Bloomington, Illinois. I think, is it Kelly who's coming or, oh no? Okay, all right. Aaron? Okay, all right. Whereas the Fair Housing Act enacted on April 11th, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, family status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas the City of Bloomington is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all. And whereas our social fabric, the economy, health, and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities. And whereas the City of Bloomington is committed to affirmatively furthering fair housing in our community. And whereas Prairie State Legal Services provides fair housing services within the City of Bloomington, funded in part by the city's Community Development Block Grant Program. Now, therefore, I, Mboka Molambwe, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, on behalf of the Bloomington City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Fair Housing Month in Bloomington and urge residents to join in recognition of the fair housing work of Prairie State Legal Services and supporting efforts towards equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of Bloomington. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor. Prairie State Legal Services is a nonprofit law firm. We do try to make sure that people in our community can access legal information and advice regardless of their ability to pay, and fair housing is a big part of that work. Everyone has the right to meet their basic need of housing, protected from discrimination on the basis of protected statuses. You mentioned some of the federally protected statuses in Illinois. We actually have a much more expansive list, including pregnancy, immigration status, and source of income, how you pay the rent. And so we look at whether there's violations of those protected statuses and try to help people seek redress. The CDBG funds we receive from the city are a big part of that, and we thank you for the proclamation.
Okay, thank you. The next item is in recognition of Larry Carius. I know Kay and family are here. For those of you who may not know, Larry is, and I think at the urging of Kay, the person who started the Bloomington Normal restaurant scene and was able to really tap into Bloomington Normal's love for food.
Along with his own.
Yes, yes, yes. And I believe more than 40,000 plus
Yes.
followers, which is amazing. Makes all of us who have Facebook pages jealous. Whereas Larry Carius is a native a native of Washington, Illinois, and went to Tazewell County Schools, Pleasant View Elementary, and Washington Community High School. And whereas he graduated in 1965 from University of Champaign-Urbana with a Bachelor's of Science in Agriculture, Dairy Science, and whereas he enlisted in the Army National Guard from 1965 to 1971 with a Specialist 4 rank and was subsequently chosen for the Selective Reserve Force. And whereas he worked at McLean County Health Department for over 40 years, from 1968 to 2008, and was a fastball pitcher and was inducted into the American Softball Association Hall of Fame for emeritus service in 1988. And whereas he served the city of Bloomington well through sitting on the library board for 10 years, plumbing commissions for 15 years, and the board of the Bloomington Municipal Credit Union for 30 years. And whereas he and his wife, Kay, are restaurant aficionados, that when he retired in 2008, he started the Bloomington Normal restaurant scene on Facebook, where he posted news and information of local restaurants, taverns, and grocery stores coming and going or growing in the area. And whereas his Bloomington Normal restaurant scene page became popular not only among locals, but grew nationwide with more than 43,000 followers at the time of his death. And whereas he was the go-to man for all things restaurant and bar related. And whereas he will forever be remembered by many across the city of Bloomington and far beyond for his love, dedication, and ornate ability to learn and share about restaurants, grocery stores, anything food or beverage related. And now, therefore, I, Mboka Malambwe, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, on behalf of the Bloomington City Council, do hereby proclaim and recognize Larry Karius for his exemplary contribution to the Bloomington community. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much. He really enjoyed what he did. He loved, absolutely loved going to all the different restaurants and finding out all about them and all the history of the people that owned the restaurants and everything.
Yeah, not just the restaurants. He loved talking to the people.
He just loved talking to the people.
Yes.
So he
Yes.
was always looking for somebody. Do you have any news? Do you have any news? Somebody coming in or whatever. So he really enjoyed it. So thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Yes,
it.
and I have to say this story about Larry. The first time I met him was at a barbecue at a friend's house who was really feeling really good about himself as he was grilling. And at that moment, Larry went full health inspector on him and said, that meat is kind of red. You know, you need to put that back.
He would do that, yes.
Yes. And he was also a fixture at liquor commission meetings and
Yes, yes.
would often send me text about, hey, this restaurant has opened, check out the page and see what it's, you know, what they're doing. So definitely appreciate him and really miss him a lot.
Yes.
You know, fantastic individual. Would you like to come up for a picture?
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is recognition of board and commission appointments as requested by the administration department. And Madam Clerk, you can announce those.
I was hoping you would.
Oh.
We've
Leslie
got,
usually does it.
we've got Jackie Young to the Human Relations Commission, Giselle Lee to the Public Safety and Community Relations Board, and I apologize, I'm not going to pronounce this correctly. So Mr. Nair to the Welcoming America Commission.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Congratulations and thank you all for your service. Next, we're going to move on to public comment. Madam Clerk, do I have any public comment?
We do. We have one person registered for public comment, and that is Marty Seigel.
Okay.
Mayor, if you want to read your.
Oh, sure. Okay, public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view, to maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views. Speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time ceased.
Thank you. I'm Marty Seigel, and I recently sent you an email about a property in the Old East Side that's currently being considered for a special use permit by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The city staff have been asserting that adding units to properties helps protect property values in the neighborhood. But this is not true. Although there are anomalies, multifamily properties in my neighborhood have typically been assessed significantly lower than single-family properties. This has been a matter of policy that was defined and implemented by former assessor Mike Ireland. In fact, a homeowner protesting a single-family assessment was not permitted to compare his or her assessment with neighboring multifamily properties because they were treated differently. I don't know if you know this. In one example, a 5-unit multifamily property purchased in 1999 was assessed lower than its selling price until 2022. That's 23 years later. It finally was assessed at its value. Meanwhile, the assessment for the single family next door was repeatedly raised. For example, in 2019, a residential reevaluation of neighborhood properties raised the assessment for the single family by about 14%, but the assessment for the 5-unit was not raised. Also, in 2023, the multiplier for assessments in the neighborhood for single-family properties was 1.0262, while the multiplier applied to most multifamily properties was only 1. So this is a question of policy. I understand that it is not the role of the city council to oversee the assessment process, but it is certainly the role of the council to require staff to provide accurate information to the public. This is especially important today when speculators from other communities who wish to obtain special use permits and variances in order to profit from investments in our neighborhoods, while neighbors often must monitor those properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have no emailed public comment.
Okay, thank you. Um, Now we're going to go to item 7A, which is a public hearing on an annexation agreement with Solar LLC for property generally located at the western terminus of Lutz Road, as requested by the Development Services Department. And I am going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:18 and turn it over to Deputy City Manager Tyus.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council members, really quickly. I think it's important to note that both of the next items could have happened in the county, but we chose to pursue annexation because they were subdividing, in part because we wanted to be able to control some of what's happening in the area as it comes into the community, and also because we were looking to secure right-of-way that's going to help with future development as that happens down the road. And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to Kelly Pfeiffer, who is our Development Services Director, and she can lead this hearing.
Thank you. So these next two public hearings are pretty much for the same parcel. It's two different contract purchasers, and so they're two different annexation agreements. So the first one is for the south portion of the property, which is at the western terminus of Lutz Road. Basically by Business 55, it's a very long and narrow parcel. The intention is to develop in a solar facility. And that land, that whole area there is really not served by water and sewer yet. It's about a mile away. So for the life of the lease, we probably will not have development over there. And the north part is hardly served at all by sewer. So what you have is there's plans for solar, no other plans. Lutz Road is substandard. It is only seasonally accessible. So the developer will work with the city to make sure that they don't traverse that road at a poor time of the year. And other than that, everything is deferred until there is a new type of use on that. So it's for purposes of solar. It's 17 acres south of Lutz Road, essentially, but it's at the terminus. It's a 30-year lease with a 10-year renewal. The Plan Commission heard the public hearing for the rezoning and the annexation in January and forwards of recommendation unanimously for the annexation agreement and the rezoning to ag for this use. The petitioner's attorney is here should there be any questions from staff or public. No one spoke in opposition to this, the Planning Commission public hearing.
Okay. Sounds good. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for public comment. Do we have anybody who wants to make a public comment? Okay, well, seeing none, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:21. And we're going to move on to the next item, which is a public hearing on an annexation agreement with a Trinity Lutheran Church for property generally located at northwestern terminus of Lutz Road. And let's open the public hearing. It's at 6:22, and we'll turn it over to Kelly. It's more.
All right, similarly, but not for solar, this is the same parcel, but this northern portion is under contract to be purchased by Trinity Lutheran. The thought process behind that is that when they expand their campus and want to do and need to do detention, it would be excellent land to be used for that. It really otherwise isn't really usable. So they're under contract to purchase it. There are no immediate plans. Everything in the agreement basically defers all of our normal activities until there is actually a planned use. So it would annex in as ag. It's not buildable until they figure out what they want to do, and then our normal code provisions would apply at that time. And again, Plan Commission forwarded a positive unanimous recommendation for the rezoning to ag and the annexation agreement. And again, the petitioner's attorney is here if there are any questions.
Okay. All right. And let's open it up for public comment. Is there anybody who'd like to provide public comment? Okay, seeing none, then we'll close the public hearing at 6:23. Thank you very much, Kelly. And now we're going to move on to item 7C, a public hearing for the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget as requested by the Finance Department. We'll open the public hearing at 6:23. And I'll turn it over to Senior Deputy City Manager Tyus.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, this public hearing is part of the budget process. We're at the point where it's time for this as it relates to our financial plan for next year. I believe last meeting, you talked about capital projects, and we've talked about the various funds at other meetings. So today, Scott Rathman, our Finance Director, will have a brief presentation, and we'll take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Tyus, Mayor, Council. As Billy mentioned, City Code requires us to do a public hearing prior to final adoption. We did a pretty lengthy preview on February 17th, a lot of financial exhibits. We did the proposed budget on the 10th of March. I'm going into detail related to the capital projects, $81 million. Tonight we'll do a quick summary and try to provide some additional perspective on the large numbers. Next slide, please. So there's been no change to the overall budget totals since the proposed budget. So the citywide budget is about 318 million. General fund 137, capital projects at 81 million. So as I mentioned, providing perspective, some context to the numbers. At the adoption, we'll go through some of the lengthier exhibits again. But we want to acknowledge that there are competing interests related to the budgeted dollars, but there are some categories that really impact everyone. So want to highlight, it's not on this slide, but capital projects total 81 million. And then for public safety, police and fire, that's very important to the community. That budget for this coming year is 70 million. And then the remaining of the operating budgets for utilities for water, sewer, storm, and solid waste is about 48 million. So that's nearly $200 million of our full $318 million budget. 63% related to areas that really directly impact the residents of our community. So capital infrastructure, public safety, and those utility operating budgets. Next slide, please. So I won't go through all the details here, but this is an exhibit we started doing a couple of years ago. Budget dollars at work. So these are some numbers that come out of our annual audit for activity, but highlighting some of the things I just commented. So public safety, you can see for police for calendar year 24, nearly 71,000 calls for service. For fire, nearly 15,000. You can see the numbers per day. Next slide, please. And so just to highlight a couple of our infrastructure items, trash and recycling hauled almost 22,000 tons, 43 million pounds of trash. Sewer and water system, we have over 1,000 miles for both those systems maintained every year. And then water pump, there's been a lot of discussion about the water. This number isn't new, it's been discussed lately, but 10 million gallons per day. You know, I was trying to find some interesting statistics on what does 10 million gallons mean. Is, you know, a gallon of fluid weighs 8.34 pounds. Ed's going to be laughing about this. So that's 83.4 million pounds of water every day move through our system. And then I'll give finance our own plug, even though we're not part of infrastructure and everything, but right there, 432,000 utility bills processed related to those utility services provided. Next slide, please. So resources for everyone, for the community. We have the budget books online now. There's 2 budget books, a lot of information in there, narratives on all the different departments and the funds. On our website, especially the finance page, we have budget video series that kind of gives a budget 101 view of how the budget is created and some of the components. A annual report has a lot of interesting information, not just financial exhibits, especially at the end. There's the statistical. And all these presentations that we've been providing and will provide for the adoption are on the website as well. Next slide, please. So just in conclusion, as I mentioned, there's competing interests for the budgetary dollars, but you know, administration, directors, council, we do every effort, you know, take every effort to try to apply those dollars to have the most positive impact on the community, make life better for our community, being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. With that, take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment.
We do have one person who registered,
Okay.
Jackie Byer.
All right, I don't know, because this is public hearing, do I need to be sworn in? All right. Okay, good evening, my name is Jackie
Yes,
Byer. Oh,
Jackie, we will
yes?
have to swear you in.
Okay,
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, my name is Jackie Byer. First, I want to recognize Mr. Rathman and his staff for all the hard work they put in for this fiscal year 2026 budget. The team always does a great job. I also want to thank council for voting to keep the tax levy flat this year. I know it results in a budget crunch for the city, but it is needed for property tax relief. There has been a recent focus on increases in rent. While I have not done a statistical analysis to determine the exact correlation, there does appear to be a correlation between the significant increases in property tax bills and the significant increase in rents. Renters do pay property taxes, only it is through their landlord. Who has control over our property tax bills? Our locally elected officials. Our local homeless population has also increased during this time period. Is that due to evictions because people can no longer afford their rents, which have increased due to property taxes? Again, it falls on all of our elected officials to prevent a cycle of increasing property tax bills, which increases housing costs, which can put more people onto the streets, which then requires another increase in property taxes in order to take care of the increase in the homeless population, which then just puts more people onto the street and so on. Back in the fall, I was invited to this by the city to attend a workshop called Upstairs Downtown. When I arrived, this bag was hanging on the back of everyone's chair. Inside was a lip balm, a pen, and some paper that all had the city logo on it. Does this bag increase the police and fire pension fund? Does it fill a pothole, repair a sidewalk, fix a sewer, or provide clean water? I have no idea how much this one bag and its contents cost, but how much was spent on the entire order of bags and contents? What is the budget for all of the city merch? Is this purchase worth putting someone out on the street because they can no longer afford their rent? The city owns 3 golf courses. Has there been any consideration to sell one of the golf courses? It could bring in revenue from a sale. It could also possibly provide an option for a housing development or other economic expansion. and reduce some subsidies for capital equipment and capital projects that would be required for the golf course. The biggest portion of our property tax bills go to Unit 5 or District 87. If increase in rents, evictions, and resulting homeless population are directly correlated to property tax bill increases, then they are the biggest culprit of pushing people out of their homes. When people are pushed out onto the streets, then it becomes the city's responsibility to help solve the problem. Because of the potential impact of Unit 5 and District 87's expenditures on the city's budget, I think it should be part of the city's responsibility to hold Unit 5 and District 87 accountable for their budget. In all cases, the rule should be function over flash and necessities over niceties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other public comment, Madam Clerk?
We didn't have anybody registered, but if anyone from the public here wanted to speak, they could.
Okay, sounds good. So we're gonna go ahead and close this public hearing at 6:31. Thank you, Scott. And now we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull 8Q.
8Q.
Yes, it goes all the way there.
Let's see. 8Q, okay. Sounds good.
I need to also pull H, please, so I can recuse myself on
Oh,
that topic.
AH?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, all right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 8H and HQ?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Kearns, second.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Mosley. We doing clickers?
Yes.
This would be the day that Councilmember Dannenberger's clicker works. Hey, look at that. And I believe third time is the charm. Awesome. Okay, so the consent agenda passes with the exception of 8H and Q. So we're gonna take them in the order that they were pulled. Councilmember Kearns, HQ?
Yes, 8Q is the item to dissolve the Property Maintenance Review Board. And I mainly just wanted to pull it to just take an extra moment because this is now the second time that it's come before council, but I want to just highlight the work that the staff, Deputy City Manager Billy Tyus really put into making sure that the concerns that were initially had about dissolving the board that they put in work to kind of make sure that they're addressing them, talk to the people who are on the board, and just kind of, I just wanted to take a moment, if you could kind of summarize that and kind of just remind people that even though this board is dissolving, it doesn't remove the city's commitment to remain engaged with renters, landlords, and the community in general when it comes to some of the issues that this board did and should, could have been addressing. So if you could just kind of give
Sure.
us a little thing about that.
I will. First of all, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it, for sure. This board was established in 2011 to hear appeals about property maintenance issues. With the implementation of admin court, a lot of those are now being heard in admin court. So the board is getting very few appeals as it relates to property maintenance issues. One of the things that this council had a concern about was that tenants had a voice and had a place that they could be heard. And so that work will continue, but through a different venue. One of the reasons that we separated our departments into development services and into community impact and enhancement was to allow community impact to take more of a role in terms of both getting the word out about tenants' rights and property issues, but also we will be establishing outreach initiatives to reach out to tenants and others, just to make sure that they are heard and have a voice as we work through the work we do related to properties. A lot of the functions of the Property Maintenance Review Board will also be rolled into the Building Board of Appeals, who will continue to carry on the work that they're doing. And so the work will continue. It just, there wasn't, the way things were organized, it didn't make the most sense to continue in that way. We're going to keep doing the work.
Thank you so much. And I'm very much looking forward to having Melissa Hahn's replacement come online. And so with that person's new leadership, kind of the staff and them continuing this work and coming up with those good measures to keep those efforts active and in place.
And that's going to happen sooner than later. We're currently interviewing, if I can say that. We're currently interviewing and hoping to have that done really, really soon.
Okay, great. It looks like.
And just to reinforce what was said, I believe that their last meeting was in September of 2020. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And they haven't had an appeal, I believe, since 2011. So, or I may have that backwards, but yes, it's been a while.
I move approval of item 8Q.
I'll second.
Councilmember Kearns and then Councilmember Ward. Okay. Okay. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce, and then we're going to move on to item 8H, and Councilmember Motney is going to recuse herself. And I believe Councilmember Motney is recusing herself because the company that she has provided this item, correct?
That is correct, and at no cost to the city.
Okay, awesome. Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Okay, motion by Councilmember Hendricks. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Becker. I heard you first. Okay. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. Somebody bring Councilmember Monty back. Okay. Welcome back. We are going to move into the regular agenda and consideration and action on a resolution approving an agreement with North Water LLC for planktonic algae treatment in the amount of $215,000, $366.27, as requested by the Water Department. And okay, we're just going to go to Mr. Andrews.
I think we've got a PowerPoint just to update everyone prior to consideration of this evening's item on the agenda. Next slide. Just to keep everyone updated, we are maintaining our webpage with Safe Water. So in addition to our Consumer Confidence Report, that's an annual publication, we do have a way to get onto the EPA's Drinking Water Watch. There's a PDF primer. I find myself challenged at negotiating that from time to time, so that's fairly helpful. And we're also available for questions at any time. Next slide. Just to give you a status on the update of the rebound of lake levels. You can see the plotting there. What's fairly interesting is you'll see Lake Evergreen has been rock steady, and we've been leaning on that lake for primary pumping since January 31st of 2025. I went ahead and included the two spillway elevations so you can see how much our actual feet down below normal pool we are on both lakes, but Bloomington is pleasantly rebounding for us. Next slide. This is a pretty compressed detail on our water quality. We intend to get this up on the website and publish this weekly with updates. Unfortunately, maybe not the easiest thing to see, but you can see a number of items there. We actually are engaging two different labs now So Eurofins has been our primary lab supporting us throughout while we are obtaining our own testing machine. But we also engaged EPS, Engineering Performance Systems, out of Florida. They've got a slightly quicker turnaround time, but unfortunately, you send data out to two different labs, you'll get two different sets of results back. So the comparable on Lake Evergreen on the MIB was pretty pronounced. All the other values towed in fairly well. We'll continue to use Eurofins as our baseline reporting lab since we've used them actually since September of last fall when that initial taste and odor appeared, and then we continued to monitor it throughout when this round came about. I guess another thing I should point out there, and we could talk on it later too, there's a slide on PAC, but our removal efficiency continues to be very favorable. The addition of PAC essentially doubled our removal efficiency on just the GAC capped filters alone. Next slide. Again, an update on our in-house testing equipment. Physically, that unit is now on site. It arrived Friday, March 14th, and training and setup will be April 14th through the 16th. So we're looking forward to be able to run our own test in-house in a more expedient manner than having to wait almost a week from either of the two labs. Next slide. I would like to say, as taste and odor wanes, it's still not where I want it to be, but we are plotting any of the complaints or concerns that are called in through both the hub and does support. We took the opportunity to run, I think, 6 additional samples out in the collection system to see where we're at. So for the last 2 weeks, our finished water has been at an MIB level of around 72. Out in the system, though, we're still seeing the mid 100s. That's that turnover as water is consumed out in the system. As we progress into this next round of treatment, at the backside of that, we want to get a little more aggressive out in the system to strategically valve off some areas, force some water through smaller pipes and subdivisions, and not just have it take any longer than it needs to get it turned over as much as possible out in distribution. Next slide. Again, I mentioned the PAC system, so we've been feeding PAC since our emergency permit was issued on March 5th. I did a breakdown on how many pounds and tons of PAC we have fed. We are into our second semi-load, so we've not even been feeding a month, and we're on semi number 2. That last order, we did have them change that over to 1,000-pound bags from the super sacks, which was our initial order. The feedback from the folks up at the plant is it's a lot easier to work with and a smoother transfer operation. So we'll look to continue ahead for the remainder of the event and anything that might get thrown at us using the 1,000-pound bags until our permanent silo is up and running, and then we'll switch over to bulk semi-delivery for that. Next slide. Just an update. Evergreen set a record high the week before last on the 10th, and it tied itself on the 17th, so 620 nanograms per liter. The EPS lab actually reported that at 935, but we're going to stick with Evergreen. I think as far as reports downstream, it seems to be pretty much consistent over the last couple of weeks on taste and odor. Next slide. One item, and the main reason why we're here tonight on taking the fight out into the lake, is we are carefully monitoring cyanotoxins. Microcystrin is the one compound that we've had detects on. This is sampling that we're doing in conjunction with the Illinois EPA at their lab in Springfield. So this is not a contract lab. This is First two rounds, EPA on site collecting samples, and then we are taking samples and getting those down to Springfield on a weekly basis. What you can see is we had no detects in February. We had our first detects out in the lake on the 3rd, but our finished water was 0. I watched this on the 10th that we had our first detect in finished water at 0.042 micrograms, which is 14% of the initial regulatory limit. I included that off to the side. And then last week's finished water number actually rose to 23%. We are under an IPA directive to pump off of Lake Evergreen. So one thing I didn't highlight is Bloomington's MIB numbers have dropped. It's actually at 69, and our finished water coming off of Evergreen through all that filtration is 72. But you can see here that Bloomington is almost twice as much on its microcistern numbers. So there's a concern there that we would not want to jump over into Bloomington until we get those numbers down and run the risk of having our finished water have an exceedance. Next slide. So again, taking the fight to the lake, I've messaged that earlier on that as we're able to do that, we will. We're working with Northwater Consulting. We have had a long-standing relationship with them on watershed management, and we interviewed 3 different firms that would assist in actually treating the algae at the lake, from a traditional copper sulfate to Cutrin Plus, which is a more strategic treatment that minimizes the amount of disruption of the algae as it dies off. We have to be careful on the balancing act that we don't have that open up and create a worse problem as it dies off in the lake. We've also updated our IEPA permit. So we initially obtained an algicide permit. That was a week and a half ago. And as we've narrowed into the specific treatment, we've updated that to a more specific treatment or permit for the Cutrin Plus treatments. So that was approved last week on March 20th. An incredibly quick turnaround time with IEPA. I think we submitted that morning. Our lake manager's over there. I think you got that permit back in 2 hours? Less than that. Okay. Well, you're best friends with those people down there. Okay. Next slide. So again, we narrowed down with Northwater to team with Aquatic Controls. The treatment with the Cutrin Plus will be done strategically, where it's maybe hard to see on the slide, but it's not just a broadcast surface application. There's draped injection lines coming off both the back of that boat, as well as it's GPS controlled, so we're not doubling up on passes, and then metered as we make those applications and treatments out in the lake. Next slide. And I'll field any questions at that point.
Okay. Question, Councilmember Ward.
Thanks for this update. I appreciate the work that you're doing and especially keeping us informed. What causes the algae bloom, and what kind of risks are there from the algicide?
So conditions are just such in the lake right now. We have typical seasonal turnovers, and as we've consulted with a number of different firms, there's a group out of University of Wisconsin-Madison campus that, when we spoke 3 weeks ago, just rattled off exactly what happened in our lake, and that it was iced over. We're in a snowfall deficit, basically turned it into a greenhouse underneath the water. Having, an iced over condition on the lake would make it very difficult to do this type of algicide treatment. I know we've been very proactive in teaming with McLean County, USDA, Soil Conservation Service on a number of mitigation grants upstream to try to buffer out any of that additional nutrient runoff that we see from farm fields and other activities upstream in the watershed. So it's a point where we're not at all times able to tackle it without being more aggressive and knocking back the algae as it grows in the lake.
And are there risks from the algicide?
Well, there can be, and so it's a very limited dose treatment. I don't want to say it's not going to be effective, but it is specifically targeted. This group has PhDs on staff, and this is what their specialty is. Again, we interviewed 3 different folks with Northwater at the helm, and it went literally from 2 guys in a John boat to broadcast copper sulfate, more just like a standard, backyard pond type, to aquatic controls. And what they brought to the table, multiple office locations. This is their bailiwick. So I would, well, it's maybe too late to say I encourage you to get on the website before you take a vote, but we really walked away impressed with the credentials that were brought forward, multiple publications on similar lakes and treatments across the country. And we have an older engineer on staff, older than me, that he is probably the most fervent gatekeeper. And when you get his seal of approval, this is the outfit that he was most comfortable with, I'm comfortable with. And yeah, we intend on watching this closely. So we do have a meeting set up for Wednesday afternoon where everyone will come together and we'll mission plan this to the next level.
Does anything eat algae?
No? You're shaking your head no.
Does anything eat algae?
I should have brought Joe up here to the front. Joe is our lake manager up at the water plant. So I told you I was going to get you on mic tonight. You didn't want to.
You were lying. There are certain types of grass carp that will eat, the algae, but not at the level that we have. They would. You really don't want a lot of carp in your reservoirs because the lakes can only hold so many pounds per fish. They deplete oxygen, which creates more algae. So we're kind of like what Ed was saying. This was a perfect storm for our lakes with low flow coming in, a hot, dry fall, a warmer than usual winter, no snow, to speak of. Everything just hit at once, and this is what we feel very confident that this will knock back the microcystin, and at the same time help to reduce the MIB and geosmin level. So we're kind of getting three for one out of that $215,000.
Next.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for the presentation and all of the information you've been sharing. I have 2 questions. One, I know you said training, the equipment came on the 14th of this month. Is it because of the contract agreement? Is it vendor training, or are we going to train ourselves? Because I noticed there was a 30-day lag between.
Yeah, actually the ship date on that machine, it arrived a week earlier than what anticipated. Still doesn't help that there's a 3-week lag between the equipment showing up. This has been a difficult piece of equipment to obtain. I know we went out on multiple quotes, and we had one firm just outright tell us we can't get that equipment within a year. So they didn't even respond. I mean, they responded to our quote with a decline to quote. The training in setup and training, will be from April 14th through the 16th. And I know our lab supervisor has leaned on them a couple of times to see if there's any way that we might grab an earlier time slot to get up and running, and they just don't have the availability until that date, so.
Okay. And the second question, and you just said the word that I can't pronounce again, but I believe it's micro system. Because in one of your slides, you noted that we've seen at the source and then some downstream upticks at, I can't remember the word. I would have written it down, but I didn't. And so, but it seems like it's closer to, where it's being produced after treated. Is that right?
Well, it's actually not being fully removed on treatment. So
Okay.
as those levels have increased, that's what we're closely monitoring and want to knock back in the lake. So this is a byproduct of the algae growth.
Mhm.
So it's a reflection of an increased amount of algae in the lake that we want to treat now at the source. And maybe that's
Gotcha.
what
Okay.
I had
And,
referenced.
and then I guess I did have one more thing. And so will that, when you noted that the IEPA wasn't allowing you to move back to Bloomington right now or weren't recommending that, is that what you're watching to make that determination in the future? Is it that particular
Yeah,
trigger?
I mean, we'll work in concert with them, but the levels in Lake Bloomington are almost twice as much as the levels in Evergreen. So right now, we're pumping 100% off of Lake Evergreen. We do have the ability to blend. We were actually blending last fall coming into this event with a 60-40 blend of 60% Evergreen to 40% Bloomington. And then we kind of had a similar algae event that EPA was monitoring with us, and it subsided. But under this condition, the exact wording was you would be better off having a taste and odor issue than having a health issue. So, we're at half the level of microcystin in Lake Evergreen. If we were to go to Bloomington and took on that 0.2, I can look down and see it, 0.219 versus 0.133. In last week, or the week before last, it was essentially double between the two lakes. It's just that much more challenge. So the anticipation would be that we would see increased amount going past the final filters in the plant. So if we're able to knock it back in the lake, it'll reduce that loading and should take us back to no detect and finish.
You good? Okay. Councilmember Crumpler?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Andrews, for all the detail and all the work you're doing. Just one quick question. Estimated timeline for once you've implemented the algaecide to really see a difference so the public can be aware.
Yeah, we've pressed on that. Five to seven days. But there's multiple rounds of treatment that's budgeted in this program.
Okay. Thank you.
And is it 5 to 7 days until people will taste a difference, or is it 5 to 7 days until the algaecide has had a chance to work?
Yeah, it's 5 to 7 on the algaecide.
Okay.
So I know you're always asking me how soon will we taste it downstream. And it does vary based on location in town. So that's why we took the opportunity this past week to also do grab samples in the distribution system to see where MIB levels are. And again, we're seeing about, mid 100s versus what's leaving the plant right now at 72. So we'll continue to do weekly grab samples and get those. We're working towards getting those posted up. We wanted to make sure we had a good way to keep that static. That reporting spreadsheet's been pretty dynamic as we've built that out. So we're going to post a static PDF weekly that is the same breakdown than what you've seen tonight.
Okay, and one other question. So down the line, let's say in the future, how do we make sure that, you know, if we had an event like this again, how do we make sure that we, now that we know what's happened, we stay ahead of it? What's the plan to stay ahead of it?
Well, it'll be a combination of permanent pack system, so
Mhm.
that gives us the ability to treat as those levels come up, but also budget and plan for algicide treatments out in the lake. So, you know, do I want to necessarily spend $250,000 to do algicide treatment in the lake? Well, if needed,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely. So again, we're monitoring these levels weekly. I made that as a commitment or an edict actually with my staff when we first came into this taste and odor last fall, that we monitor it throughout, make sure that we come out of it and we're not caught blindsided.
Mhm.
We're still blindsided because we're only able to react 1 week behind us. So the new equipment will give us that ability to run those tests in-house with more like a 1 to 2 day turnaround time instead of week over week. But again, we have maintained week over week testing since last fall.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ward?
Pardon me, we're out of time.
Oh,
Did you want to
okay.
extend the time?
Uh, sure, maybe just 5 minutes.
Well, I was just gonna move approval as
Oh, okay,
presented.
well then, hey,
Sorry.
there you go. All right, move approval. Is
I'll
there a
second.
second? Okay, second by Councilmember Hendricks. Okay, the item passes. No nays to announce. Thank you very much, Ed. Um, We're moving on to item 9B, consideration and action on a resolution authorizing waiving the technical bidding requirements and authorizing city staff to negotiate an agreement with road construction for the FY 2026 General Street Resurfacing Program. And who is coming up? Chip?
Mayor, if you don't mind, Sue, if you don't mind, we're going to ask Deputy City Manager
Sure.
Sue McLaughlin to speak this. I'm sorry.
Sure, no, it's okay. Thanks, go ahead.
Thank you, Senior Deputy City Manager Tyus. Yes, as I would like to introduce a new title for Jim Karch. I'd like to wish him congratulations. He's no longer interim engineering director. He is now the Director of Engineering officially and permanently. So I'd like to welcome him up to the podium, I guess, or the table, whatever easiest for him. I think he has a laptop. And just while he's getting ready, just thank him for a good job that he's really done with him and his staff working on the resurfacing program for this coming year with asphalt and concrete and capital projects with the limited budget and funds that we've been working with. I think they've done a good job and I think he's going to touch on that. So I will toss it to our Director of Engineering, Jim Karch.
Thank you, City Manager McLaughlin. I did hand out to both the council ahead of time and then just distributed to the public and the media as well. I'd like to highlight just a supplemental report. It has all of the charts and data that many people like that can be very dry, but you can take it with you, take a look. Also encourage you, as always, to take a look at bloomingtonstreets.com. That has all of the data as well. Next slide, please. First, start off with last fiscal year and our spending. And highlight for you, GE Road is now under construction. That's one that has been a thorn in many people's side for a long time. Those that have driven it, the traditional thump, thump, thump of the pitched panels. So the panels would rock. And what happened is whenever you don't put in rebar on a heavy road like that, it has a lot of truck traffic, the panels will pitch. If you look in your rearview mirror, you can actually see the displacement from the panels. And so what we're doing is we're going in and grilling down, kind of milling down 2.5 inches and putting back a thin sand mix of asphalt and then a thicker, stronger asphalt over the top of that. We did a pilot project west of Hershey. So now we're going to be expanding that all the way along GE Road. So just to highlight, that's one example of the kind of work you're seeing this year from last year's program. That happens many times with our asphalt projects. We'll do 1 year, they don't get finished, they extend into the next year. The other piece I'd like to highlight from last year is there's a lot of tools in our toolbox. You're going to see that, for example, concrete subdivision streets, we don't have that program in this year. We had it in last year. Why? It's not needed every year. There are some of our streets that are not able to be resurfaced. The panels, the concrete panels have failed to the point that they just need to be removed. And so one of the things that's important for you to know is just we do have many tools in the toolbox. We're trying to do pavement preservation, trying to do repairs. And so let's jump to this coming year's program. So if I can highlight that with this year's program, one of the things to notice is that the sidewalks are going to be the star of this year's show. We have put a lot of emphasis on our sidewalks this year, and that's to address the growing complaints that we had seen. We had gotten up to 489 complaints in our backlog for our sidewalk program. So the percent of focus on the asphalt and concrete program has a disproportionate amount so we can catch up. And that's intentional. I was talking with one resident who no longer is in the audience, but early on, and she was saying, hey, my public stuff comment is no longer there, and that's because it's been assigned to a program. So all of our 489 complaints have been assigned to be able to be addressed once the completion of FY26 is done. So that's one key. Another key is the percentage of the program, right? We have a limited pie, as you can see. The percent of the program, we're doubling the amount on our high pressure slurry. And it's good, we've talked about the high pressure slurry program before, but I'd like to just restate why we do it. It is a pavement preservation. It's 33 cents on the dollar approximately. So it's cheaper than resurfacing. So it is one that extends the overall cost of the overall life of that pavement, 10 to 15 plus years. And so whenever you talk about 33 cents on the dollar compared to resurfacing, that's preventative maintenance that really helps our streets. And so that's one other thing I'd like to make sure we hit on. Then if I could go to the next slide, please. From this, what we're going to be revealing to you tonight is our overall resurfacing program, where we're looking to put the reclamite, and where we're looking to put the high pressure slurry. We are doing our resurfacing program focusing on some of our major roads. We're focusing on our arterials and collectors. And why we're doing that is we're working in cooperation both last year and even before that into this year with the water department. The water department has a focus on lead service lines. They have a federal mandate. They need to address the lead service lines. Well, in the core part of town, if you look at a map, that's where most of the lead service lines are at. So we've been, as an engineering, partnering with them to be able to stay out of that area so they can get their program addressed. And then in the future, starting in FY28, really in FY27, we're going to work on Census Tract 59 in partnership with them. But in FY28, we're going to start going back into the core, and we're going to work in tandem with the water, because the last thing we want to see is resurfacing a new road and then coming in and digging up that road. That's just not good use of taxpayer dollars. So we're really trying to make sure we minimize that wherever possible. And we will maintain our practice of looking at all of the sewers underneath pavements that we're looking to resurface. So that's another thing that we're definitely trying to maintain, that existing practice, a best management practice. But you'll notice our high pressure slurry and rejuvenators are focused on local roads. And so if I could go to the next slide, please. What we did was we put together in totality the resurfacing, reclamite, and also the high pressure slurry on one slide. And then you can kind of see some of the red. At the end of this, I'm going to also talk about some of the other types of projects we have. But let's first jump to the next slide and let me focus on what we're proposing this year for our resurfacing map. We're asking you to waive the bidding requirements so that we can work directly with UCM and negotiate and look at Prospect. We're going from Oakland up to Empire. We're looking at both Washington and also Oakland, from Veterans Parkway east to Hershey. So we're focusing on our collectors and our arterials. There are many communities that actually put a higher level of service on their arterials and collectors than their local roads. Why is that? Because many people, when you're driving on your own residential street, if you only have to travel a short distance, but most of your travel is on the collectors and arterials, you want those to be at a little higher service level. Ours right now are pretty equitable. So we're trying to make sure, let's make sure we give our arterials and collectors the love that they need to be able to continue to get them a little bit better. So let's go to the next map, please. Next slide, please. So from a Reclamite perspective, Reclamite, again, is just a reminder of what that is. It is a rejuvenating oil that is placed on already resurfaced pavements. So it's pavements that have been resurfaced a year ago, and then a second treatment about 4 years. And we do that because asphalt is similar to a new car. As soon as you drive a new car off the lot, you lose a lot of value in it. Asphalt is very similar in the fact that as soon as you place it within that first year, a lot of the good stuff in the asphalt goes away, and you can get some infiltration of water very quickly. The rejuvenator gives it life again. It gives it pliability, and it mends any of those issues right away. So we have found that through other communities and through our own experience that it stretches the life of the pavement up to 40%. So it's very cost effective. And again, not just one tool. We're not just doing the same thing over and over again. We are using best management practices to manage our overall road system. Next slide, please. And again, in cooperation, we've already talked a little bit about high pressure slurry. We're focusing on local roads in this area. We're trying to stretch the life of our local roads. Local road life typically lasts longer than our arterials and collectors. Asphalt on the major roads fails sooner because of heavy truck traffic, the amount of cars. And so we're wanting to make sure we can stretch the life of local roads whenever we can. So if I could go to the next slide, please. This is a slide from our infrastructure dashboard. It made me really happy. Director Pfeiffer was over there. She was on our infrastructure dashboard while I was like, look at that. That was great. Please use that tool. We talked about it last week. It's a great tool for you to be able to go to be able to see what projects are out there. The reason I put this up on the screen, the filter that's chosen is FY26. So I wanted to show, yes, we're talking about asphalt and concrete tonight, but you'll also see Fox Creek Road being done. You'll see Hamilton Road being done. You'll see state work being done on Business 51 and Route 9. So as we talk about the overall asphalt and concrete program, it's important to note there's many other projects that are being done in our community. And also our public works crews, Mose Ricky and his team, Director Ricky in Public Works, those folks also come alongside in the roads that we don't touch. They go in and maintain to try to stretch the life of that pavement until we can get to it. So it is, again, there are so many different facets of how we're trying to manage our overall system. If I can, we'll go to the next slide and we're going to transition to sidewalks. What you're seeing is, I alluded to the 489 sidewalk complaints. One of the creative things we were looking to do is to be able to say, where are those sidewalk complaints at? So we did a heat map and we tried to find where were the hot spots of the complaints and why did we do that? Let's go to the next slide. We're doing that so we can focus some efforts on sidewalk grinding, so that we can get ahead of complaints. If we know these are the areas, yes, we're dealing with the specific complaints from citizens, but it's more than that. Many times where there is one complaint, there's more, but we don't have the funding to do all of that in that area. So we're trying to be proactive with something we can cost effectively do. Sidewalk grinding is very cost effective for vertical displacements of 1.5 inches or less. When it gets to be greater than that, then you need to start replacing some panels, and that's what we're doing with the sidewalk overall repair program. But with sidewalk grinding, that is a tool that we have in the arsenal that we're trying to make sure that we utilize whenever possible. If we can go to the next slide. I'd like to talk about a partnership with Parks Recreation. So again, my thanks to Director Veal and Assistant Director Lamb. Those folks have been great to work with. We are trying to find ways that we can partner to solve sidewalk problems. When you think about sidewalk problems, normally sidewalks can last 50+ years. When they fail, there's normally a reason. When they fail prematurely, many times it's trees, or it's a sewer service or a water service that's causing some sort of a failure in the either heaving or a depression. And while it's concrete, it can only bridge so much. Sidewalks can only bridge so much, and then they fail. So these, what we are doing here is, it's actually more of a root barrier system whenever we talk about putting in rebar. So let's go to the next slide. You're going to enjoy this. It's a 2-slide system. You can see over here on 507 Miller at Mason. Whenever you look at this, there's a failed panel right there at the tree. Hopefully you can see that little dark line. The next slide is actually dealing with what it looks like after. Can you please go back to slide 13? So again, this is the before. Slide, yes, so right there, thank you. This is the before, and you can see the vertical difference there at the tree. Now let's go to slide 14. What we've done there is we've put in rebar, longitudinal rebar along the sidewalk so that as that tree root, we care about trees. We are a Tree City, USA. We care about making sure that trees are here, but trees don't always get along with sidewalks. And so by putting in that rebar, what it does is it's a root barrier in the way that the sidewalk becomes stronger than the root, and it finds the path of least resistance and goes around the sidewalk. That way we can keep the tree in place, but we also can protect the sidewalk and don't have a repeat issue. So again, that is a appreciation of partnership. In addition, Parks and Engineering, that we've been looking at their forestry ordinance as a way to make any improvements also in tree selection, the way that things are done. So again, big credit to their department for that. Could we look at the next slide? This slide, we asked, can be a boring chart, but the reason why I wanted to put this up there is to see the overall increase in cost. One of the things that we are struggling with, not just in Bloomington, but across the country, is the significant rise in construction costs. We are seeing that in most of our bidding that we are doing, and it's impacting the amount of work that we're able to get done. So I'd like to highlight for you the fiscal year 25 is, if you look at the overall cost per square foot, is $13.25. If you go back just 10 years ago, if you look at the cost per square foot, $6.40. So within 10 years, you're over doubling the cost that we're seeing. It's not all double, but we wanted to highlight for you one example of how the costs have significantly increased, and that's impacting the amount of work we do. So within this, when we talk about costs increasing, that's impacted Fox Creek and Hamilton Road significantly. You'll notice over the past 60 to 90 days, we've brought multiple different items to you as a council for approval related to those, because the MFT costs have gone up, so we've had to take more money of our MFT pie to put toward those projects. Why is that relevant? It's relevant because some communities are able to use their motor fuel tax dollars for maintenance. We are not able to do that because we put ours toward larger capital projects. It's a philosophical choice we made a long time ago, but because of the overall cost of some of those larger capital projects, we're not able to use it toward resurfacing that some communities do. So with that, what we have done is we've tried to put a focus on a dedicated asphalt and concrete fund, and that's where you as a council have made that choice, and it's been helpful for us to have some dedicated funding. If we could go to the next slide. And this is the last slide, and it's really just about schedule. We wanted to forecast for you and a thank you, because you as a council let us go out to bid and work ahead of the fiscal year so that we can work into the construction season and be more effective. Our sidewalk program has gone out for bid. Tonight, we're asking for a waiver of our ability to start talking with the contractor so that we can get ahead of it. So come construction season, we're not waiting to take action. We can be proactive in that. So with that, just ending on a thank you, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Councilmember Ward.
Thanks for this. It's really helpful to get this overview. Just to be clear, because I know I'm going to get questions about this. In the handout that you gave us, and you didn't have a slide to this effect, or if you did, I can't remember seeing it, but you showed in figure 4, you show the street condition rating map snapshot. And so just so that I can clarify this to my constituents who I know will be asking me about this, they're going to say, well, the street condition rating map snapshot shows a lot of orange and a lot of red on the west side. And when you compare that to the combined map that you showed us a while ago, there's not a whole lot of street work in terms of resurfacing or preservation that's going on the west side, if any. And what I'm hearing you say is that's because we don't want to have to dig things up and do it twice because we're putting efforts into the sewers on the west side and in the core, as you put it. And we'll get to that soon in terms of the street resurfacing and repair.
If you would allow, I'd make one correction to that.
Please.
Instead of sewers, it's water. And so understandably so, the lead service line program. And so again, in the core, right now, there is a federal mandate, and Director Andrews can speak to this much better than I can. I'll keep it at a very high level. So from that perspective, they have a lead service line mandate. And so they're going in to look, assess, do water main repairs. What we did not want to do is we wanted to provide a couple of those years where they're able, as a department, to go in and address that. And then we're going to partner together starting in 27 and 28 to marry up so we can not avoid that anymore. We know you can't avoid that for very long. And so we are then going to start putting more of a focus on that area.
So building on what you just said, and thank you for that clarification. What's the plan then to not have to do the same work twice with regard to the sewers?
Yeah, thank you. This is a great opportunity for me to highlight our sewer team. One of the things they do we have two different arms of engineering, the above ground pavement, and we have the below ground sewers and storm and all that. Anytime the above ground pavement crew identifies a street to be resurfaced, our underground sewer crew goes in and they actually have televised data of that sewer. And they review that data. They make sure that there's nothing that is going there. You do everything you can to prevent there to be failures so they can get ahead of any sewer. So that's a good example of why you're seeing all these digs on Business 51. Like, IDOT's not even there yet. Why do we see all these barricades? Why do we see all these barrels? That's because of our sewer team. They've reviewed every sewer line, and there are places that really just need to be dug. There are places that need to be lined, and there are problems, and they're able to get ahead of that by being proactive.
And separating them?
No, so in this case, there's a lot of times there could be a hole in the sewer, there could be a failure, it's separated, it's shifted, and if we don't address it, then it's going to start causing a cave-in. And so by digging it proactively, you can get ahead of, you'll notice again, 10 years ago, there used to be a lot more issues with sewers. We've been able to be a lot more proactive with our sewer system, so.
But I mean, is the separation of the sewers also something that you're doing as a matter of course when you're digging underground?
Not always. In places like Locust Colton's CSO elimination, combined sewer overflow elimination, there are areas where we have been, but many times those that we're focusing on are just repairs.
Okay. Let's see, Councilmember Motley.
So thank you so much for the detail you provided. So just starting on the sidewalk side, the graphs that we've got relate to unit of measure of parcel miles. How many square feet are in a parcel mile? Just trying to get an idea of the total cost of what you're looking at.
And that's difficult because it varies. And so that's one of the hard aspects anytime you try to standardize something. So most of our sidewalks are 4 foot. We have some 3, 5 foot. So it is not a standard unit. But if you want, I can respond later with more of a generalization.
No problem. I mean, let's just maybe focus in on the 489, the inventory that you have of current complaints. Have you sorted those to distribute them according to their complexity? I mean, I'm sure that all 489, present differently, but there are probably some patterns.
Thank you. Yes, yes, we have, and we actually have work orders for the project for each of those. So that's actually been a huge endeavor by our team to put together. So a work order entails them going to the site, assessing what the condition and the issue is, providing a PDF drawing to be able to say, here's what work is needed to be done, And so then they're able to put that in. For example, if anybody wanted to go to the city's website, we just put out on the street the FY26 sidewalk contract. And it is probably the most extensive contract our team has put together because we were able to get well ahead of every issue. And you can actually see the way that those work orders are put together. So it was a huge endeavor this year for our team to do that.
So just starting at that same filter level and getting down to probably, I'm going to make a guess and ask you to validate it, that the simplest ones just require grinding. Would that be fair?
Yes.
So does the city own its own grinder?
Public Works, I don't believe that they do.
So I know that, we've looked at some other things that staff can do absent, what you're describing now. And now that you're, taking so much education here with continuous improvement, you've got transportation going out, you've got transportation going back, you've got all these different lines going everywhere. If the city were to have the capability to own a grinder, and if, the majority are likely vertical displacements, perhaps within the parameter, once you get this backlog dealt with, that seems like an opportunity to significantly reduce the lead time and the costs associated with these repairs. Now, that's just a guess, but it would seem like it just based on all of the My Bloomington vertical displacements that I've uploaded for people contributing to this. And that is, as you know, the one that I hear most from residents who have been injured tripping on sidewalks, which is a significant concern. So with regard to that 489, do you have any idea of the total square footage of the backlog to understand what you're looking at there?
We have the overall dollar figure. I'm sorry, I don't have the details of
Okay.
that square footage.
So I'm just trying to correlate it to the chart you showed about the cost per square foot and kind of understand again what we're looking at. Because I think as we move forward and talk about the 2026 budget, we're going to see an investment in sidewalks, which is great, but we also have, and now segueing back over to the streets for a moment, just a quick look at your chart for the PACE rating aggregation, starting at fair and going below. It looks like that comes up to 51.6% of our streets are in that fair or below category. I happen to have it written down from 3 years ago where I think we were at 42%. So it sounds like, again, we don't have this trending, and maybe my notation from the past, is inaccurate, but I think it would be really helpful for us to know, are we gaining ground against this street condition issue, or are we losing ground? Are we spending more, but really our gap is getting wider? Because it looks to me like there's been a shift despite the extra funding that we provided, over the last couple of years. So just something, that you might be able to get back to us on, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay. My last question is again about the Tree City. With so many of these, and I've heard it from the folks in Public Works where, and I'm all about trees, which I think is fantastic. But have we looked at some other means to support our desire and the community's betterment for being a tree city and providing that service, but not planning them directly adjacent to a sidewalk where we're now going to incur extra costs for rebar and other things like that to, to pay for it again on the back end for the added maintenance? Just curious if anything else has been explored there, since again, that's exactly where we're putting them, right? And, we've seen big trees on your picture there, but, there are small trees waiting to be big trees all over town.
Absolutely, we can get back with you on that, I would assume, so.
I would like to add one thing to that. I know that one of the things we are working with parks to look at different species of trees that will not cause that kind of root to come up and grow and get that big, that they're designed to be in the parkway. I know we're actually doing that with IDOT right now for Route 51 because they're going to have to remove some pretty nice trees. And so we're working with them to get them replaced, but replaced so they don't, obstruct and destroy the sidewalk.
The only other comment I'd like to add as well is, whenever I commented about sidewalk grinding, it would be best for Director Ricky to provide a response at some other later point, because there may be aspects of their operation I'm not aware of. I want to make sure I'm fair to their operation as well.
So, yeah, I mean, you've got your backlog to address, but then you've got the ones that are coming in every day too, right? So, I mean, the math of all of that, I think to have a realistic point of view about the cost and the time that it's going to take to address it all. And again, get ahead of it for the future. I mean, it's a great case study. I know that's something that Josh worked on for his project as well. I think, building on that would, benefit all of us. So, thank you.
Sounds good. We only have 4 minutes. Councilmember Crumpler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move to approve item 9B on the agenda for this evening.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Okay, it is approved. No nays to announce. We're going to move on to the Finance Director's report.
Go for it, Scott, if you don't mind.
Our pleasure. I don't know if we've done one for a couple of months, actually. I think I got kicked last month. So tonight we'll be reviewing the February financial summary. So February is 10 months into the fiscal year. That's 83% of the fiscal year. But as I always mentioned, we have several revenue categories that are in arrears, specifically sales tax, which we only have 8 months we're reviewing tonight. So we still have a ways to go. But as part of the budget cycle, we do projections, and we'll be updating those projections as we go through the remainder of the fiscal year. Next slide, please. Okay, major tax revenues. So this is kind of a complicated exhibit. We go through it every month. Most of the tax categories here are on the same trajectory as they have been. We have some ups and downs. Some of the more material ones are PPRT. That's really the one that is kind of translating into next year in FY26. I've mentioned before that the state of Illinois overpaid that fund. They are clawing back, from our understanding from IML, another $100 million next year. So you can see the far left column shows $4.2 million was budgeted. We are currently $888,000 under year to date. Our projection for the full year is $2.7 million. So that's a $1.5 million decrease. Kind of rolling back up to the top, state sales tax, $400,000 under year to date. You can see it's $684,000 under prior year to date. Now, what's not listed on this exhibit is vehicle use tax, and our vehicle use tax is actually under year to date as well. So, I haven't dug into all the retailers. It's a complicated report to get from the state, but what that tells me is that maybe registered vehicles, which hits state sales tax but not home rule, are down this year compared to prior year. So that's impacting our state sales tax. So state sales tax is leveling off. This is where we're going to take the impact of the grocery tax in the next year. But $400,000 out of a $21 million budget, that is significant, but we'll watch that as we go along. Local motor fuel tax, $272,000 under year to date. We've been trending $30,000 to $35,000 under every month. The last month, January, was $25,000 under. So I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture here yet, but we were hoping that it might rebound once Market Street construction was finalized and the Quick Trip was online. But that remains to be seen. We've got 1 month where we've had a $10,000 rebound. So still to be determined. And then local use tax, that's highlighted here as well. There's been some legislative changes related to out-of-state online retailers. The reductions here really should be offset in state sales and home rule. State sales is under, but as I mentioned, I think that might be related to vehicles. And we also took that budget way up. You can see in the far right-hand column, we took that budget up $3 million over the prior year. We've been kind of holding that one down. So Local use, that's one of those ones where next year we showed a significant reduction because of this legislative changes, closing a loophole in the online out-of-state retailers, but we offset that with increases in home rule and state. Next slide, please. Once again, I thought I would highlight one particular revenue category. This is a tracking worksheet that we do in finance. For home rule is 2.5% of our sales tax, total sales tax. We seasonally budget our calendar or our fiscal year. You can see in the far left column based on history. We had $30.3 million budgeted for the year. You can see the monthly actuals, and then we take our projection. So we have a projection right now of $30.323 million. So really right on budget. Some of that's just a commentary on how strong the local economy is and the resiliency, with a lot of the economic changes and inflation year over year. One of the things I wanted to highlight too is that, we're keeping the FY26 proposed budget at 30.6. So up a slight bit, and that's related to that use tax that I just was mentioning. We're taking use tax down in FY26, and it's being offset in home rule and state sales. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth column over, you can see the state service fee. So a lot of people aren't aware that we pay a service fee to the state of Illinois, 1.5% of our home rule, so $268,000 year to date. And then rolling all the way out to the year to date actual, we do have one month on here that isn't referenced on the exhibit because on the major tax revenue exhibit, which was into February, but we got these revenues during March. So January's is showing there. You can see that we're at year to date 23.3 million. Last year at the same time, we were at 23.364 million. So, we are dead even with last year. That's some consistency in our local economy. Next slide, please. So for the general fund, I'll roll through this pretty quickly. Our projection column where the adjustments are showing, you can see for taxes, we're reflecting about a $1.4 million under budget, primarily related to PPRT. Next slide, please. For expenditures, we're projecting overages and salaries and benefits. Some of that's related. I've been talking about the loss in our vacancy savings. We do have the workforce initiative, where we have the attrition, but right now we're still projecting to be $2.5 million over in salaries, a $900,000 over in benefits. We have some reductions in commodities related to fuel. Utilities are actually down in some categories. Our salt is down, maintenance, et cetera there. And then the remainder, though, is down at the bottom. That's kind of offsetting that increase in compensation is we're pushing out some capital expenditures. So that reduces our transfer to the capital improvement fund. So this year in FY25, we had budgeted land acquisition for another fire station and stuff. So, with some of these changes in the hiring, et cetera, we reduced some of those capital and revisited those for FY26 or pushed them out further related to that budgeting process. Next slide, please. Real fast with enterprise funds. Revenues are tracking. You can see across the bottom, our target at 83%, water at 82. We have some variability during the year, but I wanted to highlight, golf is already at 100% of its annual revenues, with some of their seasons still to come. Next slide, please. This month we're highlighting solid waste. So we've done solid waste before. Everyone's familiar with this fund and what it does. I just wanted to comment on a couple things I haven't commented on before. Everyone's pretty much aware that they're billed based on the size of their container. The increases are built in from an ordinance that was approved several years ago and then amended with the water rate increase. Each year, the rate's going up by a CPI, an inflationary index called the WST, water, sewer, and trash. And this will help the fund keep pace with the cost increases related to inflation. But the other thing I wanted to highlight is that the city offers discounted rates for low-income residents. And so on the finance page, and I think it's on some other pages, but on finance, there's a utility payment assistance page on the finance page of the website. And there's other resources there as well for people that are struggling related to paying their utilities. So I would encourage the community, if they're struggling and they're low income, to go review those requirements. Next slide, please. Expenditures. I wanted to highlight here, I must have shrunk the column so it says revised budget, year to date, revised budget. So that's revised remaining budget. So don't think that there's a duplication in the columns there. But some of the expenses for solid waste are really at the mercy of material markets. So like recycling, there's been times in years past where we were actually making money on some of our recycling. It really spiked up. The cost was really high a few years ago. It's kind of leveled off here, but some of the expenditures within this fund are not within our control. We just have to manage those within the revenue streams that we have. You know, rolling down just to kind of highlight how our financial pictures work. Month to month, commodities shows a budget of 695, year to date 312, and you know we're showing 383,000 remaining budget, not revised budget there. So what's the difference there? Well, there's $200,000 down in the encumbrances. So encumbrances are POs, that's the red at the bottom, for toters, purchases. So those will become part of our year to date, the way our accounting works. So we recognize POs, we take those off from a budgetary standpoint, but it's not going to hit our income statement until we actually receive those invoices. And then the final comments for enterprise funds, I usually try to give a health of the fund picture. So the basic revenues, the service related revenues for solid waste on the prior slide, don't go there, were around 8.8 million. The net operating expenses, removing principal, interest, and expense, is about 8.4 million. So this fund operates without debt or equipment. There's no equipment in this budget right here. Around $400,000 surplus. This fund, though, its equipment is very expensive. One garbage truck can cost $400,000. So we go into the budget for solid waste every year, assuming we're going to lease the equipment. And then at the end of the year, we review that and we may transfer that or reallocate that to paying cash. So for FY25, we actually have $1.5 to $1.6 million in equipment budgeted on the capital lease, but we'll revisit that at the end of the year. We may have reserves in this fund or cash available to make those payments. Next slide, please. And then again, as usual, reminding the community, there are lots of resources online related to our budgets and the financials and these presentations basically just go to the finance website or page of the website and all the information's there. Next slide.
Questions, Councilmember Ward?
Yeah, thank you for this. Just two questions. Did I understand right? Because this was raised earlier and by one of the members of the public, is golf is a revenue generating, the golf courses are revenue generating, right?
The golf courses create enough revenue to cover their operations, but typically they need subsidized related to equipment and capital projects. So like for buildings and things of that nature, but generally they cover their own operations.
Okay. And the local use tax, is there anything besides, you know, like if people are ordering things online or something, right? That's what that refers to.
I think,
Is there anything besides that?
yeah, like
that goes into that?
Really businesses that order from out of state vendors self-remit.
Gotcha.
So the Department of Revenue is very active in auditing private businesses to see, and they review their accounts payable, see if they purchase anything from out of state. And if you have not self-remitted use tax, they will go after you. So most businesses will self-remit.
But it's not like just a random, if I order something online, that's not me paying that.
Typically, individuals are not self-remitting to that extent. So it's online, major online retailers, excuse me, or businesses within the state.
Assuming I'm not buying that much online.
Are there other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Scott. Okay. Deputy City Manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be quick tonight. Just a couple of slides. I really want to honor a couple of departments, frankly. First is I want to thank and celebrate our Community Impact and Enhancement Department. As you remember, we separated departments in November of last year. And I want to celebrate them for the Housing Resource Fair that they had recently. They had more than 300 people come to that event. And we talk a lot about building houses and housing in our community, and rightfully so. But there's also a number of services that go with that people don't always know how to access. And so this fair was really an opportunity to introduce people to some of the services. mortgage services, there were homelessness services, there were other types of services that go with housing that were a part of this fair. So really want to celebrate directly Hannah Horn, Taylor Kern, Darcy Paul, Linda Webner, William Bessler, and Catherine Dunlap, who did a phenomenal job of organizing this event. Again, more than 300 people were a part of that at Eastland Mall. So next slide, please. And over the last week, I believe, or the weekend, we had our annual Guns and Hoses game. And I heard that the police department actually won that game. I also heard that they had some ringers as part of their team. I believe they won 10-7. And so again, so often we talk about the work that they do, but there's also other things that they're doing outside of the day-to-day work just to build and develop our community. I believe I heard that event, there were 1,400-ish people there, and they raised $30,000 for Special Olympics. So again, Guns and Hoses game. Thank you to our police and firefighters for participating in that, again, for a good cause. And finally, for me, no more slides, but I want to recognize Hunter, our police department intern in the back. Please wave. I believe this is his first Bloomington City Council meeting. So welcome to Hunter. And he actually said he wants to be a Bloomington Police Department member. So we want to get him. So thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, very good. Hopefully he still thinks the same way after the council meeting. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Guns and Hoses, match was actually pretty interesting. I say match as like soccer, but yes, it's a game, yes. But it was really interesting. I happened to see Councilmember Dannenberger in the crowd, so I really enjoyed it. It is incredible to see how talented they are. I mean, to be able to move around with the puck, that's I can't even skate, so to be able to do that is fantastic. And certainly appreciate the shout out to the folks from community development, on the housing resource fair. I think 300 people is quite a bit, and hopefully we can replicate that at some later point, and at different times as well, because I think this one was during the day, right? Okay, yes, and maybe evenings if staff is open to that. I think that'd be good to try to catch different people there. But thank you. Councilmember Mandi?
Are you finished with mayor's remarks?
Yeah, I'm done. I thought you were going to the next, yeah.
All right, so just one thing I wanted to share this evening. On the city's website, when you click on government, there's a tab that says codes and ordinances, and then there's another tab that says view online code. And I just wanted to draw attention to the municipal code, chapter 2, administration, section 13, titled how composed. And just one sentence from E in the city code. Candidates for elected offices of the city of Bloomington, mayor and council member, may not run or hold themselves out to be candidates of or nominated or endorsed by political parties.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. All right. Others? No?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Hendricks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, okay. Otherwise we're gonna stay. Okay, second by Councilman Dannenberger. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Adjourn, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.